guys, here we are. We've got our Salt Doe maps and we are ready to paint. You should have the paint that we provided for you either at supply pickup or out in front of the school. So all of your paint is in the little cups and you should have a brush as well. So what we're gonna start with is, if you look at my Salt Doe map, I took and drew a line right about here, and that's where the Oregon State is here. And then I also drew a line up here where Canada would go. The stuff here, that's going to be blue, so you don't want to paint there. We're going to start off by painting Canada, Idaho, and Oregon. We're going to start off by painting them gray. So just go ahead and start painting. You're going to want to paint the whole board up until those lines. And try to not get it on the Salt Doe on Washington State. If you do a little bit, don't worry. We will end up painting over that. All right, we have all of the gray painted, and the next thing we're gonna do is the rivers with the blue. So go ahead and grab your brush. If you have smaller brushes at home, like from watercolors or something, or from some sort of a craft room, go ahead and grab that. Sometimes a smaller brush is better for the rivers. If you don't have a smaller one, that's okay too. So you're gonna use your blue and you're going to paint the ocean out here. And then once we get all of that painted, you wanna be careful when you're painting in here in the Puget Sound area. Try not to get it on the edge of the Salt Doe. If you get it on the edge, that's okay. We'll paint over it with green. You're going to want to make sure you try to get in all of these little nooks and crannies. All right, we got the ocean painted, so now we're gonna paint the rivers. So we're gonna start, get some paint on your brush. We're gonna start up here at the Columbia, and you're gonna paint your river and come down. You're gonna go back and fill in the little spots that you missed. It's okay if it goes over the edge because we can always paint over that with green. Your Columbia River comes down and flows down into the Snake River right here. Or I should say the Snake River flows into the Columbia. I'm gonna go back and touch those up right there. So there's your Snake River, and then here's your Columbia. And then this is where it gets a little bit tricky because the Columbia actually is the border between Washington and Oregon. So when you go to do the Columbia River, you're gonna wanna just paint right along the edge of Washington. Not on the board necessarily, but just right along the edge until it meets the Pacific Ocean. All right, we are gonna start painting the Columbia Basin, which is the tan area on the map. The thing that's really important for you is to continue to have this in front of you. Now that we're painting the different areas of Washington, you're gonna wanna go by this map as your guide. So the other thing that's really important is you make sure you have a dry, clean brush every time too. So get something that you can put some paint on, a paper plate, or I'm even just using the bag that my paint came in. And we need to make a tan color, so we're gonna start with brown. We're gonna put some brown here. And then we're gonna add a little bit of white. So if you had a spoon, you could use a spoon, or you can just dump just a little bit of white and go ahead and mix it together to make our tan. Now that you have your brown made, you're ready to paint. So you're gonna wanna really make sure that you're only painting that Columbia Basin. So up to the north of Spokane, you'll paint it all the way over to Idaho, down along the Columbia River. Try not to get into the river, just get right up next to it. Down into the Tri-Cities area. down to the south of Spokane, over to Idaho. I can always come back through and fill in all those little white areas. And then down here, you're gonna wanna paint part of this area, not where you made your little mountains, maybe just this this area here, not onto these blue mountains. And then this little area right in here that's still flat. You don't want to go any more north though. So you'll want to fill in that whole area with tan, and then go back through, and if you see any little areas that you can see the salt dough through, you're going to want to take your brush and go ahead and clean up those areas where you can see your salt dough through. All right, we're doing green next. So anything that you see that is the color of salt dough you're gonna now paint that green. We want you to take out the rest of the brown, and it's okay if you just have a little bit left, with your clean brush. And what you're gonna do now is you're gonna use the brown to get a little bit on your brush. You don't need a ton. And you're going to dab it on the areas that have the mountains. So the brown is gonna represent the highest peaks in Washington. You don't need a lot. You don't want it to cover up the green. You just want a little bit in these areas that represent those highest peaks. You notice I don't have a lot on there. And I didn't even use, I didn't dip my brush in again. I'm just using what's there. And you're done. You're gonna wanna put your map someplace that it will dry without somebody touching it. And then once it's done, these actually fit in your pizza box portfolios. So it's a great place to keep them forever so that you have a great memory of 4th grade.